Hello, everybody, and welcome to this One Soccer Today special edition. We are focusing on the Canadian men's national team. Annie Petrillo, Oliver Platt, Jordan Wilson, Gareth Wheeler with you. And poof, guys, it's not just 2023. You go back to 2022. The last few years, it's just been a whirlwind for this Canadian men's national team, from qualifying for the World Cup to boycotting a game. To finally getting a goal at the World Cup. Most recently, though, this is a team playing against Jamaica. High hopes in qualifying for Copa America, to be in that tournament, to prepare for the 2026 World Cup. Looked fantastic. Game one in Jamaica, despite the game being postponed by a day because of heavy rainfall. Then they have the 1-0 lead in the first half at BMO Field, a place they hadn't lost in 13 years. But they ended up losing to Jamaica, and now they have to go into a one and done game against Trinidad and Tobago March 23rd. So with all of that, let me start with you, Ollie. What was the biggest storyline for the men for you this past year?
I think the biggest storyline for me was that it was a year that was a bit of a missed opportunity, unfortunately. And I think there was a combination of factors that played into that. I think firstly, you had a coach in John Herdman who we were never sure, I don't think, from the minute the reports of the New Zealand job came out right at the beginning of the year, how long he saw himself in the Canada job going into the 2026 cycle, whether his heart was truly still in it. Obviously, we've seen a story come out this week or recently that kind of explains some of the reasons that were underlying that were of a more personal nature as well. And then when Herdman eventually did decide to walk away, I think we had a federation that had been plunged into crisis, that had a leadership vacuum, that was kind of ill-equipped to respond, to be honest with you, and obviously is still searching for that leadership going into the new year. And when you combine those two things, you have summer tournaments where Canada did make the Nations League final, and we shouldn't underappreciate or underestimate that. But didn't really, I think, take full advantage of the opportunities that were there at those two tournaments, the Nations League and the Gold Cup, and then obviously failed to get through what looked like a tie they really should have got through to qualify for the Copa America next year, and that pathway just gets that little bit more complicated now as well. So after an amazing 2022, this one for me was a little bit of a year to forget, excuse me. And one where, we're going into 2024 with a clear need to get some fresh voices, fresh leadership, and fresh direction into this program.
Yeah, fresh leadership is going to be needed, Wheels, right? John Herdman obviously stepping down, Atiba Hutchinson retiring, missed opportunity there in Nations League final and not being able to get that trophy for the first time in 23 years. Where are you with the biggest story, Wheels?
That's John Herdman leaving the Canadian men's national team, something that, I don't think a lot of people outside, maybe the inside, thought that was going to be the case, that would actually play out the way that it did, leaving Canada to go on and take the Toronto FC job. We reported on our programs that we heard rumblings. We know that meetings took place, but how, that eventually got over the line, it took some time, but it inevitably got there. And this inspirational leader who in 5 years turned around the men's national team program and took them to a World Cup, losing that kind of inspirational voice. It was the biggest change of a year with a lot of change. General Secretary out. The combination of Bontis and Cochrane out this year. Ollie spoke to it, like incredible change within the Canadian Soccer Association. But the biggest one, at least for fans and onlookers, it's losing John Herdman and where they go from here without him. There's certainly suggestions in terms of him calling out the Canadian Soccer Association at the Nations League final, and some of his comments at the Gold Cup as well kind of hinted at that would happen, but still, I think it's a shock to the system when and that Herdman left in the way that he did.
It is a huge shock. I'm still shocked, to be honest. I was sipping the Kool-Aid of Herdman and the Canadian men's national team being one, the brotherhood. I was on that train for sure, and I didn't see. We talked about so much, right, in terms of Herdman and would he leave. I was like, no way. This is a team that he's built. This is the good part, right? Talked about the analogy of eating mashed potatoes and vegetables, and like, this is the steak bit. You get to go to the World Cup 2026. You get to host it. I never thought that he would be leaving. So yeah, for me, I gotta agree with Wheels. That's a story that still is like pinch me. I can't believe he's a Toronto FC coach and he's not coaching the men's national team.
Does definitely feel like a little bit more of a bitter taste left in our mouths after 2023. But come on, Ollie, there has to be a high moment. What would be your high moment of the year?
They made the Nations League final. Like that's the second major final in this men's program's history. Like that shouldn't be underestimated. Like I said before, I know that the pathway to get there maybe wasn't the most difficult this time. Panama in the semifinal is a tough game that they came through. But in terms of avoiding the US and Mexico en route to the final, that things kind of opened up for Canada in that regards. But I don't think this is something that we should take for granted just because the final was disappointing and didn't go to plan. You know, Canada playing in the Nations League final, in the Gold Cup final, that's something that we want to see become a regular thing. You know, I think we can talk all we want about World Cups and Copa Americas, but if we're going to be competitive at those tournaments, we've got to be more competitive than we have been in our own region. And this was the first step towards doing that, building off that 2022 qualification cycle. So that was a good moment for me, as much as it didn't end well. It's important to see Canada in these kinds of games.
Wheels?
My favorite game to watch was the Canada-US game at the Gold Cup that went to extra time. Just simply
Yeah.
thrilling.
Yeah.
But I think upon, in retrospect, that victory in the Nations League semifinal against Panama, it was a good win. It's a really good win. Panama is a good team, and they continually get better. Panama made the Gold Cup final, beating the US. I know it was a US second team, but still some really good players in that US team. Beat them on the way. They were right there with Mexico in that final as well. They've crushed Costa Rica in the 2024 Nations League. They're a really good team. And the fact that Canada handled them and beat them 2-0, I thought it was a good win. David and Davey scoring, a big stage in Las Vegas. So that for me is the high water moment. And hopefully a win now that looking back, it's not just Panama. It's you're beating a very good team there. That was their marquee win of the calendar year.
It was a huge win. I got to agree with you, Wheels. Mine is a bit different because this is about vibes and personally how I felt watching this game. Granted, the competition was Honduras, March 28, 2023 at BMO Field, but 4-1, Kyle Aaron at the end of the game saying, you can call the team Kings of CONCACAF. But it's actually the feeling going into qualifying for Nations League. That for me was a time in this year where I use the analogy of sipping the Kool-Aid. I was ready. I was like, they're not Kings yet, but this team could actually go out and do it. I think they could beat the USA in the Nations League final. And I'm gonna get ahead of myself if I keep talking about that particular game. But in terms of a feeling about a group, I thought there was depth. I thought they were tenacious. I thought like their pace, they knew how to play with each other. They looked familiar. The chemistry was there. It was also a game where like they went out guns blazing. Like it was 2-0 in the first 15 minutes. And granted, I know it's against Honduras, but in terms of the vibe within the team, I felt like at that time that Canada could compete with the best of teams in this region. So
Jordan,
March 28th sticks out to me.
Okay, but let's stick with you because I have a feeling I know exactly where you're going. What was your low moment?
Yeah. The low moment has to be for me November 21st, the loss to Jamaica at BMO. And for me, it's only because I put those two together, right? You're looking at March where everyone's feeling good and you feeling like this team, even if they're not playing the best on the day, I felt in March and even going to the summer that they would get something out of matches. And then they slowly kind of just went down this hill of Nation League final. Granted, I agree with Ollie in terms of you got there, you got to the final, but in terms of showing up for the occasion, they weren't there. Then Gold Cup. Granted, I know it's not your strongest team that you put out, but again, it's still a quarterfinal loss to the Americans, where a game where they could have won, and they put themselves in a position to do it, but just couldn't cross the line. And then again, all these things, and you go to Copa America to qualify, and this is Jamaica at home. And Wheels, you went over the stats. This team doesn't lose at BMO. There's always vibes. It's great. Then to lose it the way that they did, and we don't have to hash over again. For me, that has to be the lowest moment.
So March high, November low. Where are you at, Wheels?
That's it. It's that collapse, and that's what it was against Jamaica. You're in complete control of this tie through 3 halves of football, 2 down in Jamaica after the game was postponed, and the 1 on home field. You're feeling good about yourself. They're out playing Jamaica. A lot of the really talented players in the Jamaican side have been limited to a certain degree. Yes, Leon Bailey missed chances in the first leg, but still, you're right there. You have a 3-1 aggregate lead, and to throw it all away, conceding, really backbreaking goals that are completely avoidable if they played a little bit more mature. They were just simply wide open. Just from a strategic perspective, it just didn't equate. And then they pull one back from Ismail Kone in the 69th minute. They're still on course. They're still on track to go on and qualify. Then they give up the late pen, Decordova Reed, and now all these documented this before, a completely different path to what their games look like in 2024, and nothing comes easy. Now they have to go on and beat Trinidad and Tobago, which they will be favorites in to go qualify for next summer's Copa America. But this was a game that you felt they had. And I feel like the negative vibes coming from it and that collapse kind of encapsulated a lot of the frustration that was had by the players, by the staff, by fans across this country over 2023. It was a very humbling year for everyone involved in Canadian soccer. And I feel like that was the one moment above all that kind of spoke to how humbling it actually was.
Yeah. Ollie?
Yeah, it felt like the culmination of all the negative stuff over the past couple of years, basically arriving all at once in one big landslide and collapsing on the team. Like the Nations League final, for me, they were just beaten by a better side, as much as you can point to some of Canada's shortcomings on the night. But like the guys said, at halftime, second leg of that Jamaica tie, they look like they're cruising. They've blown them away in the first half and could have really made the tie safe if they'd taken their chances. And then that second half is like, I don't know. I still don't know if it was naivety or complacency or a mixture of both, but mentally they were not there coming out of that halftime. And that was an incredibly disappointing 45 minutes of football.
So I just want to know one sentence as to why you're going to choose this person. But Jordo, did anyone's stock rise for you and why?
I think a 24-year-old in Tajon Buchanan seems to just keep rising for me. This is a guy, just putting it contextually, was 9th overall pick in 2019 for New England. And look where he is playing now, and look how he is playing now. Like, yes, I know there's some rumors, and I'm not even going to really give credence to about Man City and this and that. But in terms of top-notch football, A1 clubs around the world, Tajon Buchanan can be there. This is a kid from Brampton, Ontario, who went like the school route and then end up going into MLS. Like, it's not just little moves, little jumps that he's making. These are leaps every year. He continues to get better. I don't think even when he started his career in 2019 for New England, people would think that he would be a right back at a top club. Like, maybe he could dabble there because of his pace. But it just seems that when he's gathering information and the way that he's playing, he's just doing it at such an accelerated pace. That's why for me, he's always like the bright spot on the pitch. He's always someone that my eyes are drawn to because of what he does and the shorter time that he's done it in. So for me, I think it's rose and it keeps rising.
Ollie?
I'm going to go Ismail Kone. I know Kone's breakthrough kind of happened in 2022, but, he made his debut that year. He didn't actually start any games at the World Cup. That was still a very young player at the time. 2023 was the year for me when he really took off in a Canada jersey and now looks like a player who I'm not sure you can take out of the starting lineup right now. He's impacting the game in possession. He's got so much quality on the ball. I think defensively his game is growing. That's still a little bit of a problem area for Canada in central midfield, but I think he's improving. And you saw there, he's starting to impact the game in the final third as well and score and create goals. So I think he's got a bright future. Seems to be doing pretty well for Watford right now. So hopefully things continue to go from strength to strength for him in 2024.
As long as Watford doesn't sack their manager, like that's
that's a guarantee.
Like, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I know. So, but Cody's getting some burn now, which is great. I like both your picks, but I'm gonna go in a different direction. Stefan Eustachio, 2023 for me is probably the best of all the Canadian players, not just for the national team. I'm more looking for his club career because he's made himself a regular in a very good Porto side who are playing big teams in the Champions League, and he's become a big part of that. He scores goals, can get involved in the attack, he can drop a little bit deeper. And for Canada, I mean, he scores against Jamaica, fine in the first leg, good goal. But where you really noticed his absence the most is when he didn't play against Japan. And I understand it was Biello's first game in charge, but take him out of the Canadian midfield, you're left with far more question marks than answers. He makes everyone around him better. And oftentimes that's the case. Like once you take away that player, what does the rest of the group look like? And Canada are by far a much better side with Stefan Eustachio in it. Unrecognizable in a lot of ways for me. He's so important for both club and country. Well done. A great 2023 for Stefan Eustachio.
I know we love giving grades, but we're just going to do a ranking out of 10 here as we kind of just sum up everything we've just said. So you ready? I don't want to see letters, drawings, anything creative.
Damn.
Ollie,
Boring.
yeah.
You just say it or what? We say our numbers?
Unless, I don't know, unless did one of you actually get your crayons
show?
out and do something. But here's
No.
the thing.
No, but my
Jordan?
Sharpie's right here, so I can.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rank, Jordan, the 2023 Canadian men's national team?
And sorry. Oh shoot. 6. 6 out of 10.
What just happened there?
Yeah, there's a lot. I looked at my hands. I'm looking at the screen. It's in reverse. It screwed me. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I all of a sudden had different hands. Yeah, I had like 10. I had like 12 fingers. 6 out of 10. The reason why I say this, it's because I expected more. I expected Canada to show up. Look, we went through it already. It was Nations League. I have to agree with Ollie in terms of, yeah, the US are better on the day, but I thought, and this was my critique at the time as well, that Canada should have adjusted a bit faster to the game. But it was a final. I think to make it a bit closer and to go down swinging, that would have been my hope just as a fan of this team. Gold Cup, yeah, I think you got a tough draw because you lost to the US. But then if you're looking even at qualifying for Copa America, that should be done and dusted right now. There should not be a game in March against Trinidad and Tobago. That should already be done. So it's Canada getting into these positions, but not really taking care of business. For me, that's me giving them a 6 out of 10. But guess what, Andy Petrillo? 2024. Brand new year, clean slate. Hopefully that 6 can maybe go to an 8, 9. We hope.
Are these my hands? Are these my
hands?
hands?
It was weird.
I heard some,
it was weird.
I thought
Something
I heard
happened.
some markers scribbling. Is somebody scribbling there? Some markers? I don't know. Ollie, why don't you go next?
I have a marker in my hands, but no, I'm not doing any.
He shows the marker.
What's your number? What's your ranking?
I'm gonna go with a 5. I think 6 is a little too high for me. Like I just didn't really feel that they were fully there in the summer. I thought the best performance they got, or at least the most spirited performance they got, where it felt like the Canada we'd seen in qualifying was the B team against the United States in the Gold Cup knockouts. Like that was one where I felt excitement about this team again. Then they get humbled by Japan and Copa America, the Copa America qualifier that goes the way it did. So look, compared to Canada teams of previous years, 5 is maybe a little bit harsh, but I think relative to the expectations we have for this team and this level of talent, even 5 might be a bit generous, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going 4. You cannot give this year a passing grade based upon where expectations are. And if you've probably asked the players and those involved, they say very much a similar thing. Like the year got off to an okay start. They lose their manager. They draw Guadeloupe at home in the Gold Cup. Not a great result. The collapse against Jamaica, the fallout from losing to the United States, the turmoil, amongst CSA leadership in terms of the turnover there. The comments, me turning to we, hearing Herdman come out after the Gold Cup final, like praising his second team, basically saying like, this is a reset. We got our vibes back. Well, your vibes back with the second team. Like it was just, it was not a good year for the Canadian.
Yeah.
They didn't play in a window. And then the other window, they fly across the world to get handed their lunch by a very good informed team in Japan and just played that one game. It's just, there's no way there's a passing grade for this year. 2024, both on and off the field, have to be tightened up. There needs to be more accountability. There needs to be better play on the field. I'm with Jordan, though. It can happen. I love this group. I love this team. Like, I think the whole entire country has fallen in love with them. But just now we're at a point where we expect much more. You cannot... This is a cautionary tale for Canada soccer, anyone involved in soccer in this nation. You have Alphonso Davies, you have Jonathan David, you have Stefan Eustachio, you have Tajon Buchanan. You have class players. This is no disrespect to the players of the past, because some excellent players have played for Canada, but we're on a different level here. We need to be able to take advantage, things need to build and come together quickly ahead of 2026. Time is of the essence here. There's no time to mess about. There's too much of that here in 2023. So onwards to 2024.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough to give a passing grade when so much has happened, not just on the pitch, which is obviously what we've seen, but also just the turmoil off the pitch. And I think also more than anything, guys, sometimes it's the responses. I know it didn't sit well with a lot of fans, even after that Nations League final loss, where some of the players came out and said, I thought we played well. Nobody wants to hear that when you lost 2-0, where it felt like your best player, you couldn't really find the proper position for him on the pitch. Davies moving side to side. Laren and David not finding the back of that. No one wants to hear that you played well in a game where you lost. So I think sometimes it was also just like what was said or reactions. And then to your point, even John Herdman using that as an opportunity to come after the federation. It's like, now's not the time. Like, maybe take a little bit of ownership for the loss and the way it played out. So I think a lot of times it's also what's done, how you play, and then what's said as well that can rub people the wrong way. And I didn't have a good feeling for 2023, but I want to have a great feeling for 2024. Ollie, what do you think is the biggest need heading into the new year for this team?
Well, a new coach, new general secretary, new leadership, like we've got to start there, obviously, before we talk about the team itself and some of the things that any new coach will be looking to address. But look, I totally agree that we've got a hugely talented, promising group here. There's so much to like about this squad and these players. But we've also got to realize that there's about 30 or 40 countries in the world who also have really good players. And the teams that succeed are the teams that, really put in the work, have the organization on the federation level, on the program level, to compete at the highest level. All of the little things that you do to build a team over the course of a World Cup cycle or multiple World Cup cycles, these things matter. And we've got away from doing all of that. Like the focus that they had qualifying for Qatar 2022, the team was so locked in, and it was all about the team and not about individuals. There was an incredible camaraderie in the group. I don't think that's fully gone away, but like there just needs to be a refocus, I think. And for me, that comes from new leadership coming in and setting those standards and expectations again.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you though, Ollie, because now that you've just described 2024 and what you want to see, I want you to put an exclamation mark at the end of it. Fill in the blank for me. 2024 will be a successful season
if we qualify for Copa America, firstly, and then I see real signs of progress and evolution in this team in those types of games, going into, or leading up until the 2026 World Cup. We've got to start competing with teams outside this region better than we have.
All right, so same format for you, Wheels. I want you to tell me the biggest need heading into 2024.
I thought I was going to say it'll be a successful 2024 if they beat Argentina at the Copa America. That would be a bold. that would be a bold claim right there. But you're right; they need to get there first. It's not just the new voices off the field. I think it's time that the team on the field needs to be freshened up. A lot of these really experienced players have done a heck of a job representing this country. But it's time to bring in some younger talent. I think there's some deficiencies in this team, and you need to kind of figure out what you have and what players fit into the mold in the way that this national team wants to play. I think that was one of the reasons why the Gold Cup in 2023, it was frustrating at times, but you learned something. You learned that a player like Ali Ahmed could come in and play, a player who a year ago was maybe completely off the grid in terms of, being selected for a national team. Players like Bombito, McGraw, there were some new players that came in. I think that it really got people excited, but now I just think it's a must. So, I understand why Biello stuck with players that are more experienced that he trusted for the games at the end of 2023. Almost worked, but now you have to shift. You need to go into a different direction, and I think that will come through a new manager. So that is paramount. If Biello or DeVos or whoever is still with the CSA, if those jobs become permanent, that's fine. It just needs to be put into stone so people understand what things are going to look like moving forward and how things are going to work. And I think some bold calls, some bold decisions are going to be required in order to take Canada to the place where they need to be.
Drive it home then, Wheels. Fill in the blank. 2024 will be a successful season if
they beat Argentina at the Copa America.
I love it. I love
All right,
it.
so they're there for you. They're in Copa. They're qualifying for you. Okay. All
Get
right.
there.
They
They
should.
got to compete. They have to compete against the biggest and the best. This is the thing. Like,
Yeah.
step up to the grown up table here. The big dogs. They did it at the World Cup. They competed with some of the biggest nations in that tournament. So that's what I
Mhm.
expect at the Copa America. Even if it's new leadership, let's go. This is what we want. This is what you want. You have to show up and show out.
Jordo, you're up.
And what stands out from that, I'm just going to piggyback off of Wheels. Going into 2024, what I want to see, 3 words: harmony, because that was present at the World Cup between players, managers. They just went about their business a certain way. They're like, even if it's playing the villain, like the world is against us, or they don't think we could play, you could see that on everyone's face going to the World Cup. Yes, they didn't win a game, but yes, you had everyone talking about you. You led categories in terms of like the way that you pressed at the World Cup. They put Canada on the map in terms of being a football nation. I think also too what the players have gotten away from by watching the games in 2023 and what they need to get back to is being hungry. The hunger to want to play for your nation, but to want to go and win and dominate a game. All the other nonsense that people are subscribing to, and for me, it's not just the players, right? I just think in general in the soccer community in Canada, it's just having that hunger to go out and be your best, whether that is being a coach, whether that's being in the front office. Go out and stop subscribing to all the nonsense and just go and put your best foot forward. And then the last one for me is humility. You guys can see that I haven't like I'm itching to play because of course I come up with 3 things ready to go into this year. But humility is huge because I think that's just what gives you that ability to go about your business, feel confident, but still be down to earth. And I think a lot of the times when I'm looking at this team in 2023, there's a lot of stuff that they're subscribing to, a lot of stuff that people are just subscribing to that have little to do with football and actually like bettering the next generation or bettering that group. So for me, 2024 has to be a year of humility where you come into camp, you're
Is that
all
your
about
fill
your
in the
business.
blank?
Yeah, I
No.
think my fill in the blank is making sure you have harmony, hunger, and humility. All 3 of those things. I think good things will come
H's.
from that. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 H's,
Triple
baby.
Triple H.
Triple H, baby. Oh, you guys don't know the Triple
Going
H.
wrestling. Yeah.
Oh,
Triple
baby.
H.
But yeah, I think like for me, I think it just needs to come down to that. And I think this team was so attractive and so entertaining when that was like the premise, when that was the focus. You could see it on them, right? I think if they get back to that, good things will come.
All right, couple more minutes left here. Ollie, put a bow on 2023.
Difficult year, but hopefully one that in the long run we can learn some lessons from and will turn into a good thing. I think if we get these big couple of decisions coming up right in terms of general secretary and head coach heading into 2024.
Will?
I've dealt with it in my own personal life. Sometimes you need to go through difficult moments to appreciate what you have and then be able to take a step forward. And that's hope that's what 2023 was all about. Learning, maybe taking a step back and understanding what is required to move forward here. So that's a way that you can take a negative calendar year or a disappointing one or a humbling one, whatever you want to call it, and come out better on the other side. 2024, the potential for some more really, really big, important games for these players in this team. So let's go learn those lessons and move forward accordingly.
Jordan?
I wouldn't even say that there's pressure on this group, but like obviously there's a cheesy quote saying pressure is a privilege. It means something's expected of you. I think that when you're looking at this Canadian men's national team, we expect them. I don't want them to go and win a World Cup, but I want them to compete. I want them to be their best every time that they step on the pitch. And I also want to focus on football and again bettering the next generation. So all those deals and everything that needs to be focused on in that, I want them to be the best versions of themselves going into 2024. 2023 for me, if I had to just talk about it, was a lot of getting there to the right moment, but not taking care of business when it mattered. And we can look at a few situations when that happened, but I hope for 2024 is the men's national team get to that moment, but then also take care of business in that moment as well. Not just kind of get there and coast, get there and really handle business the way that they can.
Yeah. And I think what the year was is a nice reminder. We all know this, but it's also a reminder that sports is not linear. And just because you have success in one tournament or you even have success in one full year, it doesn't always translate to the next. You don't just keep going up and up and up. Well, we did this, we beat this, we won this, so it means a trophy is next. No. right? It's sometimes you can
Yeah.
take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And that can be a little humbling. And you're right, it's that whole adversity. How do you respond from here? And I always say, be careful what you wish for, because we want soccer to be bigger in this country. We want people to be talking about it. But with that means you get praise when it's good, but you get criticized when it's not. So there's just a lot of learning that's been going on, I think, as well with the Canadian national team, as it does continue to grow. But to your point, Jordo, it's got to get over that hump, and it wants to win that trophy. That's it for us focusing on this special edition of One Soccer Today on the Canadian men's national team. See you next time.